I don't like Superman. I've never liked Superman, even when I was a little kid. I never have. Don't get me wrong, I love superheroes, as you can clearly tell. I mean, loved the MCU back when it was good. I, I like Captain America. His movies are phenomenal. Daredevil's TV show was amazing. I like Spider-Man's movies. I like seeing Wolverine here and there. Even reading some comic books about Marvel. My favorite comic book characters to read about are Batman, Nightwing, and Green Lantern. Those are my favorite characters to read in a comic book. So I clearly enjoy DC Comics, but for whatever reason, I can't seem to enjoy Superman. Um, Now to be fair, I haven't tried really hard, but occasionally here and there, I'll make an attempt and I'll try to refresh my mind, or I'll watch a YouTube video on it. In fact, for the past year, I've watched a few, maybe no, three or four um, YouTube videos about why Superman's good, or why this Superman story is just amazing, or why this movie is perfect, and why this encapsulates Superman perfectly, why you should like Superman more, why you shouldn't hate him. Um, and none of them really have been quite able to convince me. So in almost every single one of those videos, the main consensus, the main argument that I see is pretty much you don't get Superman, you don't understand Superman. He's not supposed to be dark or gritty or grounded in any way. He is supposed to be inspiring, uplifting, to show us that there's a better way, that we can be better. That's great. It's a great message. The problem is that there's a better way to do that message. When making a heroic character or heroic main protagonist character, um, you want that character to both be inspiring but also relatable. And so, let me give you some examples. So, while we're on the subject of superheroes, Batman, Batman is a character who's relatable because he's human. No, no, not because he's human. It's not because he doesn't have superpowers. He's relatable because of his trauma. Batman is a character who's dealt with trauma, who's dealt with tragedy. Despite that trauma and tragedy, he pushes through and he makes something better of himself. He works hard and he lets that tragedy in his life fuel him to do good things and to make himself a better person. A lot of us can relate to that. There's a lot of people who have had trauma in their life, who've had loved ones die, or maybe not even loved ones die, just other traumatic things that have happened in life, near experiences maybe. It doesn't matter what exactly the thing is, but regardless, we can all relate to having something horrible happen in our lives. And we can all be inspired by Batman's determination to shape that thing into something good. That's why Batman is relatable and inspiring. Also, Spider Man. With great power comes great responsibility. That phrase is almost as notorious as the Superman logo. Everyone knows it, and everyone knows what it means. Spider Man is a young teenage boy, a nerd, not popular in school. Uh, Guess what? We can all relate to that, especially the main audience. The majority of people who read comic books are, guess what? Young teenage males who are nerds. I'm not saying that you can't relate to Spider-Man if you're not, but that's the majority of the audience. So, duh, Spider-Man's relatable, easy. But also, he's relatable beyond that because Spider-Man has struggles in his life, and maybe not the horrible tragedies of people dying, although it does happen in his life. Sometimes simple things, as not being able to go on the date because he has to be responsible. With great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man teaches us very important lessons that you have to make sacrifices in order to do what is responsible, what you should be responsible for. And that's being responsible. Your responsibility is to be a good person, right? That's what Spider-Man is. He does good things. He does heroic things because he believes it's his responsibility. He makes sacrifices to achieve that. That's what's good about Spider-Man. That's what makes Spider-Man relatable and inspiring. He inspires us to take responsibility upon ourselves and make sacrifices for that responsibility. But he's relatable because of the struggles he goes through in life, and And how, I mean, honestly, Spider-Man's very human. He that's what people love about him. He's a good person, but he has struggles in life. He deals with ordinary, everyday things. You know, he had a pretty average upbringing. Not perfect, but not bad in any way. He's a pretty average guy. With everyday struggles. You might say the same thing about Superman. Superman's an every average, pretty average guy. Yes, except he doesn't really have struggles that much. You see, we never see Superman really get reprimanded for ditching on his job to be Superman. So that's not really a struggle or a sacrifice because it doesn't seem to ever get reprimanded for it. Um, and then I just don't know of any other struggles he has in life. He was raised in Kansas by two perfect parents, completely flawless people, which is how they explain his good nature. But I mean, it's just so bland and it's just not relatable. And I'm sorry, no one's lived a perfect life. No one has that life. Everyone has struggles, and Superman just doesn't seem to have, personally, from what I've seen, doesn't seem to have struggles. As not as much as these other characters, at least. Not so much so that he's relatable and interesting. And I'm not going to argue that he's too powerful. I'm not going to make that argument because I actually don't think that's a valid argument. And I've seen the videos where they talk about how Superman's a good character and they talk about that argument, why it's wrong. I agree, it's an invalid argument to make because there are other powerful superheroes that we still do love. For instance, I'll use Thor as an example, specifically Thor from the MCU because that's a more popular version that everyone's familiar with. In the first movie and in the first Avengers movie, Thor, very powerful character, of course, he struggles with pride and arrogance. That's a very human thing to struggle with. That's the thing a lot of people struggle with. We can relate to that, and also we can see that he is still flawed. He is not perfect. And then later on, his struggle it changes, right? And it becomes more about grief. I mean, we see that in the grief kind of starts in his second movie when his mother dies, but gets even further when then his father dies in his third movie. He loses his hammer, and then finally by Avengers Infinity War, he's lost everything. He is grieving at that point, and by his fourth movie, he's depressed. The man has depression because he let his grieving turn into rage, and then once that rage was over, because Thanos died, he became depressed. Thor is such a human person for being a god. He is incredibly human. So we like Thor. He is relatable. He is three-dimensional. He's neat. Superman's not three-dimensional. He's very one, two-dimensional. He's just very all he is. Truth, justice, the American way. That's great, but that's all he is. Speaking of truth, justice, and the American way, you might make the argument of Captain America. Well, here's my counter argument to Captain America. And no, it's not the fact that he doesn't have as many superpowers as Superman. That's not my argument. No, my argument is that Captain America is Steve Rogers was a good person despite the things in his life. His parents both died in the war at a young age when he was young. Despite this, he's still a good person. Despite this, he still wants to go into the war despite the fact that he's not even fit to go in the war, that he knows he would die instantly. And everyone keeps telling him this, and he doesn't deny it. He knows it, but he believes that he should fight regardless. And because of his good nature, he earns his superpowers. He earns the super soldier serum. Superman never earned his powers. They were handed to him on a silver platter. And Superman wasn't a good person despite things. He was just good because everything was handed to him on a silver platter. He just landed in the perfect place on Kansas. Everything just turns out perfectly for Superman. Everything turns out perfectly for Clark Kent. But Steve Rogers is a good man despite it. And then we go further with Steve Rogers as then he experiences tragedy in his life, like many superheroes, with Bucky Barnes dying, his closest friend. But then it goes even further when he effectively dies and then years later is out of the ice and he's lost his entire life. And at that point, we see if we're talking about the MCU version specifically, the best depiction of Captain America, then what we see is that Steve Rogers is depressed. Yeah, you can clearly tell if you really pay attention, you will see that Steve Rogers has depression. And in modern 21st century, uh, what's more relatable than that? So many people struggle with depression. And here's Captain America, somebody who people are inspired by and who moves people, who leads people into battle to do the right thing. That man has depression. And what the message that that shows to me personally is despite your depression, despite the things you struggle with, that doesn't mean you can't be like Cap. You can be like this superhero despite the bad things in your life. You can do it. It's inspiring. The fact that they're flawed makes them more inspiring. All Superman tells me is that you can only be a good person, you can only do good things if your life's perfect, if everything just works out for you. That's the only way. From what I've seen, the only interesting plot device, the only interesting, not even a character flaw, but a struggle that Superman deals with is his relationship with Lois Lane. It's a will they, won't they story. Effectively, what they've got going on is a romance. But in many depictions, she's already in love with him. They've been together in comic books for an incredibly long time. Their relationship seems to always work out. But I mean, regardless, that is why I enjoyed my Adventures of Superman, the TV show. I enjoyed that because why? There was a struggle with the relationship with Lois Lane. They took it a step further, where they asked the question, will Lois Lane figure out Clark's secret identity? So it was both a romance and also there was also, as a plot point, her possibly figuring out secret identity. Now taking it a step further with her seeing things about maybe him becoming evil and how she's having trust issues with him. This is great. That is actually a pretty good. That's a pretty well written Superman story. I'm not gonna lie. Now I'm not just here to just. I'm not here to just complain about Superman. I was trying to make a point. Is that Superman's not inspiring to me? He's the opposite. Um, and I want Superman to be more grounded. I want him to be more relatable. I want it to be a I'm good despite, and you can too. You know, that's kind of what I want to be because that's kind of the way it is with pretty much every other superhero I can think of. That's what makes them so interesting. And so I actually do want to enjoy Superman, and I'm here. I am explaining my reasons why, and I'm actually gonna plan on ingesting as much Superman media as possible because I haven't ingested that much. But I will say what I have enjoyed from Superman media. I have enjoyed My Adventures with Superman. I really, I really like Superman Red Sun. Although I don't think that really counts because it's a different version of Superman who has a flaw, which the flaw was his upbringing. So, as where I said earlier, how he was raised by perfect parents in Kansas, they flipped that on their head. And what if he was raised by communists? Well, that completely changes things. Now we see his good character working through despite that, and how he needs to also grow and realize that communism is no bueno, and that he really should just leave humanity to decide their fate rather than intervening and trying to subject them to his will and to his beliefs. Um, which also, another thing is, normal Superman doesn't interfere with political conflicts and stuff like that. He's like, oh, I'll let humanity deal with their thing. I won't impose my beliefs, because this is not me. I'm an alien. First of all, no, you're not. You're pretty much born on Earth. Might as well been born on Earth. And secondly, um, that's lame. If you really believe that something's right, why don't you fight for it? Captain America fights for it, and that's why we like Captain America. Is no matter how many people will disagree with him, he still fight for it. No matter how many people are against him, even if he's the only one that's willing to stand up for him. But meanwhile, Superman is completely willing to be the government's uh, lapdog. I mean, like we see that in The Dark Knight Returns, where he is just willingly their lapdog, despite the fact that I, I'm not sure he even really agrees with what the government wants to do in the story of Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, where they're basically making superheroes and vigilantism illegal, and they're driven all them away, and superheroes don't exist anymore, and now they're mad that Batman's come back, and it's like Superman's only argument is that, oh, we shouldn't impose our beliefs on them. You know, it just reminds me of the Captain America quote that, even if the whole world tells you that something wrong is something right, it's your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look in the eyes, and tell them, no, you move. Gosh, that's inspiring, and that's what Batman does as well. He's like, I don't care if the whole world's against me. I'll look him in the eye and say, no. That's inspiring. That's what we should do. That's what we should strive to do, to fight for what we believe in. Superman's just like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to make people upset. That's such a wussy thing to do. To just back off because he's afraid to make people upset and afraid to like he doesn't want to get in the conflict. It's not his place to get in the conflict. Like what the heck? Really? Really? um and we see that and I don't think that's the only story we see it in. If I'm not mistaken, no, maybe I am mistaken. I'm not sure if there's another story we see it in. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong. If there's a story that's different from that, then show me. Back to what I was saying earlier about stories I do enjoy about Superman, though. My Adventures of Superman, Superman Red Sun. I like Superman in the Justice League animated TV show, but I'm really watching the TV show for the other characters. He's kind of my least favorite character. He is my least favorite character in the show. Um, let's see. I like Batman more, duh. I like Green Lantern more, I like Hawkgirl more, I like Wonder Woman more, I like Flash and Martian Manhunter. Yeah, he's my least favorite in the show. I do like him in the show, but he's my least favorite in the show. And that's another argument I wanted to bring up is that I don't like Superman on the Justice League because honestly, this is where the argument of him being too powerful actually is valid because he makes all the other members seem pretty inferior for the most part. Um, Not that they aren't useful in certain scenarios. I mean, Green Lantern can create anything with his mind, so there's something Superman can't do. There are some scenarios where Green Lantern's then useful. Batman's super smart, so he can form plans and stuff. But in many situations, Superman makes Flash completely pointless. In fact, like now, the writers have to specifically write a problem that involves having to be ridiculously fast, so that way Flash has to do it and Superman can't just do it. I've seen this in comic books where they've had to specifically write something in that requires you being ridiculously fast. And you can tell that it's just cheaply written in. They're like, oh, we have to have Flash do something. We have to make sure that's also exceeds a certain speed so that way Superman can't just do it. Like, seriously? So I do think Superman's a little too powerful. Not in his own stories, but on the Justice League. On the Justice League, it's like, it's not just that he's powerful, he has so many abilities. And it kind of makes the other characters feel a little inferior. Mainly characters like Hawkgirl, Wonder Woman, and Flash. It makes them seem kind of inferior since Flash's abilities to move fast, Wonder Woman strong, Hawkgirl strong, they fly, they do a few other things, but that's pretty much it. And so he makes them seem inferior by being better in all those arenas, except for speed. But even then, how many scenarios do you need speed for? They're having to wedge in scenarios so that way Flash is useful. It's like really, um, I never see this problem in an Avengers story. In an Avengers story, everyone seems useful. It doesn't seem like that they had to wedge something in to make somebody useful, and occasionally somebody's not that useful, but in the next story they'll be very useful. So, but as we're Justice League stories, it's a lot of times it's like we need to find something to make this character seem useful, so we have an excuse for them being on the team. And I feel like that if Superman wasn't on the team, it'd be much easier to figure out how to make characters useful because now Superman's not there to just take care of everything. And there have also been times where I've read comic books about Justice League, and I'm like, can't Superman just handle all this? Like, why can't Superman just deal with this by himself? You know? Or Superman just one or two other heroes? Why do you need all seven of you? Like, so regardless, um, I still enjoyed the Justice League TV show, but the only reason I like it is because they nerfed him. It's actually something that I think the creators they actually talked about. They're like, yeah, we made him weaker, and they were talking about that, and it was like, I think that's part of the reason I enjoy the show. They nerfed him. That makes the other characters feel more important, more useful. And so I like him. I'm okay with him. I like him in the Justice League TV show. And I watched Superman versus the Elite. That was also an okay movie, but um, with problem with this movie, Justice League, not Justice League, Superman versus the Elite. Um, it was a very good story about how our heroes need to be inspiring, and that's why they shouldn't kill. So that way they can be a symbol of hope to us, and they can inspire us, and they need to be better, right? They can't stoop that low. And so it was a pretty good message that we need to strive for the good. That could have been his Batman story. Could have been a Spider-Man story. Could have been Wonder Woman story. Could have been any other superhero. It didn't have to be Superman because guess what? May not Wonder Woman. She actually kills. Could have been Flash. You get the point. Is there a lot of other characters who don't kill? So I mean, I know this is a DC story, so they wouldn't use Spider-Man. I don't know why I said Spider-Man. They could have used Batman. I think Batman's the obvious one. He has a stricter no kill rule than Superman does. You know, and Batman's inspiring because of that. Or you could use Flash. Flash has a strict no kill rule. He doesn't kill. Why couldn't you use these characters? They're also inspiring, and in my opinion, more inspiring because they're also relatable. You know, they've had trauma in their life. They've dealt with issues. You know, even Flash, a character who some people might deem to be a nearly perfect person. No, 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 no. He struggles because not only does Superman have this issue with Lois Lane, he has the issue with Iris West. They both have that same issue, but also go a little deeper. He struggles with the fact that his mother was killed and his father was blamed for it. Tragedy and being good despite the tragedy. Inspiring. You know, he didn't have a perfect life. So, I mean, there you go. But point is, so I liked that movie, but I didn't feel like it had to be a Superman movie in order to be good. Um, and then what other depictions of Superman do I like? Ooh, this is a hot take. I liked Man of Steel. Um, I know a lot of people disagree with that, but I do. I liked Man of Steel um, because while they tried to make it more relatable by adding tragedy with his father passing, and also with him getting bullied as a child, I actually really like the whole him getting bullied as a kid and him wanting to hit them, but his parents telling him that he needs to not. And it was like that's relatable, like him trying to learn to restrain himself. So like that made him more three dimensional. As far dying, I mean, kind of, but then again, the way they did it was really stupid. I'll admit the way they did it was really stupid. I don't mind Zod dying. I think it was necessary that Zod was going to kill the family. I think it's necessary. And then now Superman having internal conflict of I killed somebody. That makes him more three dimensional. And yes, the movies didn't really go down that path, but they could have. It opened an opportunity for a sequel that could have dove deeper into how Superman was feeling on the inside about ending somebody's life. You know, the grief, the guilt that he had for that. Um, so I liked Man of Steel. It's not one of my favorites. It's on low end of my low end of live action superhero movies, but I enjoy it here and there. You know, I enjoy it. I've watched it a few times. Regardless, though, there are a lot of things I haven't seen, or I just have not seen since I was like 7. And that's like every other live action Superman movie. Haven't seen them since I was like a small child, so I don't remember them. I've also not watched Superman the Animated Series. And then there's some comic books I haven't read as well. And then there might be a few more animated movies. Yeah, there are a few more animated movies. And then there's another animated movie I liked, Superman Man of Tomorrow. The reason I liked that one is because he was new to his powers. So he was struggling with being new to his powers, and that was part of it. I like that he was younger. Um, Maybe I should revisit that movie so I can give a more educated explanation for why I liked that movie because I liked it, but I struggle to remember all the reasons why I liked it. Regardless, I'm meh with Superman. I overall don't enjoy him. You know, there's little things here and there that I enjoy, but not that much. he's the kind of hero that shows up on every top 10 list, but despite that, I don't feel like he belongs on any top 10 list. And I want to enjoy Superman. So, what I'm going to do for the next, I don't know, a few weeks, months, however long it takes, I'm going to ingest every single piece of Superman media that is on HBO Max, or otherwise known as Max now. And I also maybe plan on reading a few comic books. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you whether or not I've been proven wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is something relatable about Superman that's just going right over my head that I just missed or something. Or I don't know. I don't know, but maybe there is something. So I plan on diving a little deeper into Superman and trying to see if I can enjoy the character because I want to. Superman Legacy is coming up in just a few years, and so I want to be able to enjoy this character, like how so many other people enjoy the character. Um, feel free to comment down below and tell me all the reasons I'm wrong. Tell me my logical fallacies or whatever. Give me sources too. If you have a suggestion for something that was really good or an explanation for why something was good that I said wasn't, you know, um, I'm open. Like, please, yeah, give me recommendations of things to watch. Give me recommendations of things to read. Explain to me why certain things were good. Explain to me why some of my arguments weren't good. Feel free to, because I do. I want to enjoy Superman. I really want to enjoy Superman. Because I can't find him relatable, I can't find him inspiring, and so he's just nothing to me. He's not relatable, he's not inspiring, he's just very meh, and he makes the Justice League feel inferior. In summary, that's how I feel. But I would like to enjoy Superman. I would like to, because I want to, because he's everywhere. He's absolutely everywhere in superhero media. So I would love to be able to enjoy him. So yeah, again, please leave comments, talk to me, argue with me. I want my mind changed, so feel free. And then I will be back with a part 2 after I've watched all the animated series, all the movies, maybe even read a few comic books, and we'll see how my mind has changed. See you then.